very tragic day for Israel. The loss of life is astounding. The atrocities that were committed against innocent Israelis, Israeli citizens, young Israelis will, I think, forever be etched in our minds. And Israel got a lot of sympathy from around the world after that happened. But as you mentioned, it also now almost a year since that happened, it's really changed the face of Israel's relationship with its Arab neighbors. It caused Israel to go on the warpath against Iranian proxies. It's resulted very recently in Iran doing direct missile strikes against Israel. And so these conflicts and tensions that were kind of simmering below the surface before October 7th have all risen up. And I think the question is this going to continue to escalate into a full-scale war?
Do you think that the American voter is aware of just how many foreign policy conundrums await the next president? Because I just am thinking, we political shows talk a lot about the economy and immigration, but when you start to think about Eastern Europe and Ukraine, the Middle East and Israel, we didn't even mention the possibilities in the South China Sea. Do you think the American people are paying attention to how much role the American president plays in all of this?
You mentioned Ukraine and the Ukraine conflict, and that's not in the news a lot anymore. And so perhaps they're not thinking about it as much as they should, because the next president has some really tough decisions to make with respect to Ukraine, and hopefully will continue the aid and support for Ukraine, but in a way that's going to help ensure that Ukraine ultimately prevails in that conflict. I do think the American voters feel like foreign policy is more important this time around than it has been in previous presidential elections, because we hear a lot about the Middle East. And I think even if you're an American voter and you don't follow the Middle East closely, you have this sense that this conflict is expanding, that the Middle East is a mess right now, and that it has the potential to get much worse. I think also China, we don't hear a lot about very recently, but we do know that there is a threat of China invading Taiwan. That could happen on the next president's watch. So I do agree with you that voters should be thinking about foreign policy.
Foreign policy advisor for President Obama's 2008 campaign, David Tafuri, thank you for your time. It's a complicated world. Thank you for helping us break it down. Still ahead.